Welcome back to the channel. We're going to today it's the last nice day pretty much according to the weather report for some time. We're going to start getting pretty cold after today, maybe even a little wet, a little snowy. So before that happens, I wanted to get out here because I got Black Friday coming up and I want to take advantage of Black Friday as far as the wheels and tires. So I got my Speedway wheel fit tool or whatever you want to call that thing out, and I got it kind of set up right now. Currently I got it set up at a 17-inch diameter, a wheel width of 10 inches, and that's where it's set currently. But I'm going to be playing with that because I'll show you why here in a second, because I want to check and see what kind of fit we're going to have on this car regarding the wheels and tires, obviously. Now, I went over to Walmart and I spoke with the manager there, and he gave me some tires. Actually, he only gave me 2 tires because they only had the 19, I believe, and the 17-inch tire, which I don't really want to put 19-inch tires on this car. The reason why I got it is because I was interested in the 17 and 18 size is what I was interested in. They did not have any old tires that were 18-inch. They only had the 17 and 19, and I thought that that was all I was going to get for today. So I just pretty much said, yeah, hey, you mind if I just take the 19 as well? Because, you know, it would at least give me a little bit of a reference, so to speak. And you just basically, you got to be really nice to the manager. Tell him what you're doing. I took my phone with me. I showed him a picture of my car, the wheel fit tool, etc. Explained everything, and he basically, and I'm not disclosing where this is at, and I don't want to get him in trouble, but he said I got to punch a hole in the sidewall or in the tire or something like that, so you cannot reuse the tire. And I said that's fine. And I said, hey, look, I'll even bring them back if you need them for credit. And he really didn't answer that, but I mean, I'm going to take them back to him and say, here, thank you very much for your time. But anyway, that's what's going on. And then I went over to another tire place, which, you know, I was surprised they were open. Most tire places around here, they're open till noon and then they close, and it was almost 2 o'clock. And and by the way, that other tire place was closed at 2. I came in there at like 1:47, and I could just see them guys coming into the waiting room area with the look on their face like, oh God, what does this guy want? You know what I mean? Your Saturday's about to be ruined, right? And I said, look, dude, I'm not here to ruin your day. I promise. And then I did the same thing. I showed him the picture of the wheel fit tool and my car, and I told him what I'm trying to do. And he said, oh yeah, let me go back here and see if I can find something. And he found me an 18-inch. Just so you know, I'll read the specs out loud here. 225 55 R19 is what that one's going to be. The 17, let's see, what does it say? 225 50 R17, and then the 18 is actually the better width. So this is probably what I'm going to be doing for the front wheels of my car, actually. So this will be really close. I'm either going to do an 18 or a 17, but as far as the fit, I got a 245 45 18. So this is actually going to be more along the line of actually what I'm going to install on the front of the car. If it's a 17 or 18, I don't know that yet, but it will be very likely 245 wide, and it's very likely going to be a 45, probably anywhere from a 40 to 50, you know, profile, so, or aspect ratio as they call it. So that one there is actually going to be, when it's on the front, probably looking really close to, you know, what is actually going to happen. All right, so I'll be pausing this video as I go because I just want to get this out to you guys. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time doing editing right now. I think you've heard me say this before. So you're going to notice I stopped the camera and that sort of thing, and then just, you know, kind of keep on going, keep on talking. You'll see it stopped in space. So right now I need to actually get the car jacked up I'll get the back end up and put jack stands underneath it. I got to figure out how I am going to get the front put up in the air, though. That is a good question there. Now, here's the other problem that I kind of sort of have right now, is that first of all, I don't really have the full weight of the car complete, because I still have to add the entire interior. I have to add, I mean, I got the engine in it, and in fact, the engine that I'm going to put in it is going to have aluminum heads, it's going to have aluminum intake manifolds, you know, water pump, aluminum water pump, all that stuff. But the current engine that's in here now, actually, let me show it to you, I guess. Yeah, if you can see that there. So it's got aluminum timing cover, but the water pump that I'll be putting on this one is cast iron. The intake, the 4-barrel intake on this one is actually a 65 cast iron heads, cast iron block, aluminum valve covers. But I mean, this engine here is technically going to be heavier in the end than the one that I'll be putting in there. So there's some of that I'm playing with as well. My guess is that I'm going to want to allow at least a 1/2 to 1 inch of clearance as far as drop, as far as like the continual weight of this thing as I start adding, you know, the exhaust into it, I put the drive shaft into it, you know, again, the interior in it, you know, all of that, the battery in the trunk, which the battery as of right now is going to be an anti-gravity lithium. However, I don't know, man. I'm so nervous to put that in there. It's great because it's lightweight and it has a little bit more voltage, which would be great for the, you know, the wire going front to back, carry that voltage a lot easier. My issue with that is lithium technology. I don't want to put all this freaking money into this car just to have some stupid lithium battery catch on fire and ruin it all for me. So I'm seriously considering selling that lithium battery, even though I paid way too much for it and thought that it would be the best way to go because of the long distance of travel, and it would hold the voltage higher and all those reasons why you should use it. But you know what? I think the extra 40 pounds and, you know, these newer batteries, especially AGMs and stuff like that, that actually have, you know, no caps on them. They're spill proof. You know, honestly, I'm really thinking that I would much rather have that with the extra weight, knowing that the potential of fire is so much less of a chance of it happening than taking a chance on the anti-gravity battery, which again, I've done some research on it, and in the beginning there was fires, especially on motorcycles for whatever reason, but I just don't, I don't know. There's a lot of lithium type battery fires going on. Or I should say the statistics show that it is a thing. And it is increasing as far as like compared to what it used to be, compared to what it is now. There are a lot of fires. And I don't want this thing getting burned down because of a stupid, you know, hey, I saved myself, you know, 30 pounds. I mean, really, it's not worth it to me because I've taken so long just to get to this point. So that being said about the battery, okay, let's get off the battery subject. But my point is that there's not full weight on this thing. But I do have enough weight, in my opinion, the cast iron engine, the transmission, and the gear vendor unit in here, that it's pretty much going to sit where it's sitting now, other than it might sink another 1/2 to 1 inch, about. And actually, I kind of like the height of it as it is right now, so it wouldn't really bother me, honestly, if I were to actually, how do I say that? If I were to actually have it sitting at this height, I could actually tighten it, because that's the other thing. My springs are tension at the least amount of tension right now. So if I put all the weight in, and it will sink, but if I were to actually tighten the springs up, I could get it back to this. The only thing, though, is the overall outside diameter of the wheels and tires that are currently on here, because you have to remember these are 14-inch wheels on here right now, and I'm going to be putting much bigger wheels, and I'm going to have to get obviously a lower profile, and there is that line of profiling You know, I'm leaning heavily towards a 17-inch wheel because I like a little bit of rubber. I do not like rubber bands. Those are 17 inches on my F100. And that's about as much of a rubber band as I want. I call it rubber band, but that's about as much as I want. And these right here, let's see, these are 45 profile on the front. And I believe I did the same on the back. Let's see. I did a 40. So it's there's a little bit more of a quote rubber band look on the back by, you know, hardly anything. But my point is that is about the least amount of rubber that I like to see. If it starts getting really, really thin, I don't know. I don't think it's a good look on these cars. I've seen them on 69, 70, you know, on older cars, and I don't know, but it's just something about the 71, the 73. To me, they look a lot better with the fatter tires, and everybody that I talk to, by the way, they're all telling me to put 15s on this thing. And you know what? That's still an option. I don't have a 15 to test against as far as a tire or anything like that, but honestly, it's still an option. However, I am actually thinking about road racing this thing, SCCA, which brings me back to the 17 and 18 inch tires. Also, the other thing too, why I'm not quite going with 15 or sold on 15 is because of the fact that bigger brakes. Right now, factory brakes are on here, disc brakes. Actually, this was not a factory disc brake car. I had to actually find a Mustang that had factory disc brakes, and I swapped everything over. And you know, nothing wrong with them. I mean, they work, etc. But obviously, a bigger brake is going to do a better job, right? So that is something to consider as well. But here's the other thing too. I'm not against mixing it up. I mean, like, I wouldn't mind like some 15s on the back, you know, some good rubber, making it look like a fatty back there, so to speak. And then, you know, maybe a 17 up front with a little bit of a, you know, kind of a rubber band tire on it or whatever, just as long as, you know, I don't know. I mean, that is an option. And therefore, then I could get bigger brakes on there with the bigger wheel. One thing I definitely don't want to do is I don't want to do this. I do not want to see this kind of gap here. I'm not really even, I mean, right now this thing is just factory suspension. Eventually, when I do work on this, which is a whole different subject, but when I do work on this, I'm planning on sinking this whole truck about 2 inches or so. And especially if I'm going to keep the same wheels and tire combo at that time. If I do, coming down 2 inches will make that front, in my opinion, look way, way better. Right now, to me, it looks like the front, even though the truck is actually literally setting level, but it does look like the front is sitting just a tad high, and it's all because, in my opinion, of that gap there between the tire and the fender. So that's something else. But I mean, as far as this car goes, I do not want to see that gap. I mean, from the side, I want to see that tire up in there, or just, you know, just kind of like where it's at right now, at the worst, basically. So let me get this thing, this video here paused, and then let me get this thing jacked up. And like I said, I got to figure out a way to raise it up on the side here and keep the weight on the suspension. I don't want to raise it up and then set it down, and then, you know, none of that, because, you know, you got to get this thing where it's now settled. Because when you raise this thing up and you allow them arms to come down, and then you set it down on a jack stand or something, and then you got to kind of jump on it and, you know, get it to settle again and blah, blah, blah. Well, right now I've got it settled. So I'm going to try to see if I can grab somewhere at the A-arm. In fact, you know, I might even do this too. In fact, I'll probably do it over here on the passenger side. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise up one side on the front to, you know, just enough to get the tire off the ground to where I can get it out. And then on the back, though, I can raise it all the way up, because I'll put the weight, the jack underneath the center of the axle carrier, the center section, raise it up, jack stand it over here, I'll just put a jack stand for safety, but I will probably just jack it up and just let the jack hold it there, and then I'll be able to put the jig on there. So anyway, let me get this thing jacked up in the back anyway, and then we'll start playing with the Speedway wheel fit tool jig, or whatever the hell we want to call it. Hang on. Okay, we're back. I just wanted to do this little step here so you can kind of see what's going on. I hate the fact that I got to turn off the music that I'm playing, because YouTube will strike the stupid video as if I'm stealing the freaking music or whatever the fuck. But anyway, so you can see I got the jack there with a nice piece of soft block of wood underneath the center section there. This is a positive traction axle, so of course I don't really even have a drive shaft on it yet, as you can see. So when I spin this side over here forward, that tire over there will go forward, of course. Alright, so I got the wheel and tire off, and I've only been holding on to the wheels and tire with just 2 lug nuts because this car's not running. It doesn't move really, other than me pushing it in and out. That's all I do. So no sense in putting 5 lug nuts on this stupid thing every time I want to take a wheel and tire off. Alright, so here's the Speedway jig, and I happen to have a 5x4.5 pattern, which is that hole right there. And these are 1/2-inch studs, by the way. So what you're going to do, you take that up there and you line it up with that, and then you just kind of rotate it until it fits. And it's actually a pretty snug fit, actually. So, and then I'll take and put these on backwards, so that way the flat part is actually holding it. So basically, the way I lifted this thing up with the jack, yeah, take a look at that. My painter, not happy with him. I actually knew that. I just am now suddenly reminded of it, now that I'm, you know, taking the tire off and looking at all that shit. So my wheels and tires that I'll be using will have quite a few spokes on it. So technically you really won't see a lot of that, but yeah, that's disappointing. I can't believe that they didn't mask up a lot better, but they didn't, and now I got to deal with that shit, which is, but you know what, again, I've always said, and yeah, look at that. I mean, they painted right over my my bars, everything. I mean, it's I don't know. Every time I look at this paint job, I think it's not bad, and then I start looking more and I start going, but it could have been a hell of a lot better. Whatever. Alright, so moving on here. We'll put that on there like so. Tighten this up. I'm going to pause this thing and tighten this up. And then I'm going to play with this here as it is right here. Like this will, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to actually take measurements. So, because this is the mounting surface here. So basically the back side of that right there, wherever I put a tape measure on that, that will give me my total, you know, how you want to say, my total, I'm trying to think of how to say that. Like it will give me the cavity that I got inside here by basically using this right here as the standard, because this is the mounting surface, right? And that's the other thing I should tell you. This is not the original 9-inch axle that was in the car. I was given this 9-inch axle back in college, and I mean, the guy himself owned a 1971 Boss 351 Mustang, and he said, and I had an 8-inch, and he said, hey man, you need a 9-inch in there if you want to, you know, do some serious shit, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. So what I did was I went to school and come back, and my dad said, hey, by the way, Scott got you a 9-inch axle. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I took it back to school with me and I installed it, and I had no friggin' clue. I don't even know if this thing is actually the right axle for this car. I really don't even know that. I've just always assumed it was, and at the time I had 14-inch Keystone style classic rims, and I basically put 245 60R 14 tires on it, and I had them on there when I had the 8-inch axle, and when I put the 9-inch in, I put the wheels right back on, and to me it did not seem like it changed. So quite honestly, I think it's the right one, but I don't know. And now that I actually have this thing apart, I'm going to take that other wheel off, as a matter of fact, now I'm thinking about it. And I'm probably going to measure from here. It looks like I can get a tape measure right across here, across the top, all the way to the other side without hitting anything, it looks like. It's going to be tight, but I think I can do it. And if I do that, then I can actually get the actual mounting surface to mounting surface dimension. I can write that down and I'll know that. And I can look it up and see if it is in fact actually the correct axle for this. I don't know. But I mean, let me just say this. If I can make some wheels fit on this the way it is, that's what I'm going to do. If it becomes a problem, then maybe I'll end up dropping it out, taking my aluminum center section out and put it in a axle, and I will actually, build one to, but that would be a shit ton of work, because I'd have to weld those on for my total control products. I mean, there's just all lots of shit that I have to do, but if that's what it takes, I guess that's what it takes. But hopefully I can find some wheels that'll just make this thing here work. So I'm going to pause it here again and take the other wheel off. I'm going to measure from the backside of this over to the other flange. Actually, I can go underneath too, I guess. But I'm going to do that because I just want to know that measurement anyway. And then I'll play with this a little bit. You can see, okay, so you can kind of see, actually, before I turn this off, so you can kind of see what a 10-inch wide wheel. This is set up for a 10-inch wide right now with no backspace at all. So considering that the wheel that I would buy, that 10 inches wide, for example, let's just assume I did buy one that was 10 inches wide and it didn't have any backspace whatsoever right now, then this is what a 10-inch wheel, 17-inch, would look like. And you can see I've got, easily almost 2.5 inches right there. It goes up pretty good there. So yeah, I mean, I got a lot of room here actually. And it comes out here. I mean, getting right there. So it's just inside the lip here. And I hammer rolled these before the body and paint. So these are you can kind of see how I beat on them. I don't really care what it looks like, because out here it looks fine. But right here, yeah, I hammer rolled these as much as I could. And if we need to, we might have to, hit a roller on here, one of them roller things that bolts right there, and roll it back and forth and heat this up and kind of stretch it out. But I'm hoping we don't have to do that. I really don't think we have to do that. Let me put it this way. If we have to do that, I'm probably just going to go with a smaller wheel and tire combo, because I don't want to have to do that. I hate body and paint with a passion. I do not want to have to redo any of that. I'd rather just, because what I had on here before was the 14s that were 245 wide. And they actually look good, in my opinion. I thought they looked great. It would have been nice to have a little bit more meat in the back, but yeah, they were acceptable. I would do that again, honestly. But since I'm rechanging and remaking the whole look, I'm going to do that with the wheels that I want. Okay, so all right, now I'm actually going to pause this. I know you think I talk too much, and I don't really care. But anyway, I'm going to now take and get this baby ready to measure the other side, and then I will come back in and I'll actually start putting these wheels on, tires on there, so you can see what that kind of sort of looks like. Okay, so I now have the jig on completely and fully. I take these lug nuts right here, again, flip them upside down so I don't, stab into them with the taper. and I actually tighten them down, just snug them down. Don't tighten them too tight, but just snug them down so this is nice and tight now, and this drum can't be loose. Like, it's now up against the flange of the axle. So, and then I took the other side here, and I took the tire off, and I did the same thing. Flipped the lug nut upside down and just tighten them up here so that, again, when these drums here can't, because they're right now, you know, normally these things are like rusted right here, right? And you got to bang on them to get them off. Well, these are, you know, these have been off and on several times now. I'm sure the rust will form eventually, but my point is that they're loose enough to where if you don't tighten these down to hold them up against the flange, they can kind of loosen up just a little bit and just tilt, and then they rub up against the brake drum, or the brake shoes, and the drums rather, and then they it causes it kind of hard to turn this thing. Basically, it can almost like break it, so to speak. And trust me, it's hard to turn because it's already done that to me. I was kind of wondering why, and then I got thinking about it and went ahead and tightened that up, and now I have no problem with that. So I'm actually going to, like I said, you can see now I can stick a tape measure right across the top of that axle there, all the way over there, over to here. I'll probably get my son out here to put like a straight edge right there, and we can get an exact outside to outside flange mounting surface measurement now. And the other thing too is that when I go to measure the cavity, for example, so like when I go to measure inside here to find, you know, how far this is to the mounting surface and this back wall is to the mounting surface and all that, I'm actually going to take this off and put it on the other side, and I'm going to take that measurement on both sides because, again, this is not the original axle. I want to make sure that, you know, I'm not off one side or the other by an inch or two. I mean, you know, ½ inch to an inch, probably you won't notice it. But 2 inches, I mean, that's a big deal, probably. I really don't think that's what we're going to find, but you just never know, and so I'm going to make sure. But I'm going to take all my measurements now while I can, and yeah, up front, I'm probably going to have to do the same thing, but again, like I said, I'll probably jack up one side, do the measurements, set it back down, jack up the other side, and do the measurement. Since I definitely, like I said, I do not want these A-arms to be fully relaxed. Because again, you get them things to where they're relaxed, and then, you know, you put like a block of wood or something underneath them or whatever, then, you know, you get them, and then you set the car back on it, and you really need to actually joust the suspension. I mean, really, to get the suspension to settle, especially when this stuff is all brand new, you should take it a drive around the block. I mean, I'm not kidding you. When I changed the rear leaf springs, particularly on this car back in college, I changed the rear leaf springs. And when I first put them on there, man, it was all jacked up, and I was like, man, this is disappointing, because I did not want it jacked up that high, right? It literally took me over a month, and I'm not shitting you, month of driving in town and even on the interstate, like a 5-6 hour drive from college to home, before that thing, over that much time, a month, settled and finally came down. And again, that was new suspension parts, right? And I know that the rear spring's a little bit different than, you know, the front end, but my point still remains. Being that all this stuff is brand new, and I've had this thing, you know, rolling in and out here with that weight for at least, well, and then it went to the paint shop, and he was rolling it everywhere and all that. You know, with it being weighted that long on its own weight that it is right now, that suspension is about as collapsed, or whatever you want to say, compressed, as it's going to be considering that weight. And I just want to keep it that way. So that's why I don't want to, you know, do the easy route, which is put the jack underneath the center crossbar support there, raise the whole car up, and then try to set it down. You know, but I'll just go from one side and do it, and then go to the other side and do it. That's pretty much how I'm going to do this. Okay, so gonna pause it now, do my measurements, and then when I start putting tires on, I'm gonna definitely show you. You know what I think I'm gonna do based on looking at, we're at 30 minutes here. I know I talk a lot, but I think what I'm gonna do is I probably will end the video at this point, and then I'll do a part 2, and you know, maybe in a part 3. Part, 2 for the back and part 2 for the front, or 3 for the front. I think that's what I'm gonna end up doing. Hold on. Okay, I'm back, and yes, I'm gonna make this a 2 or 3 part video. By the way, it's cooling down here, man. I hope I can get this done today. But anyway, all right, so what I did was I actually took a tape measure. I had my son hold it right up against this back here, avoiding all these wing nuts and everything. We went straight across over to the other side, and I had this straight edge right here that I put across just like that and kind of brought it up, and it is exactly 61 inches from mounting surface to mounting surface with the brake drums on, from side to side. And I don't know if that's a factory for this particular car, but that's what I have, and that's what I'm going to try to use. I think I'm going to end the video here at this point. If you're disappointed that I didn't get all of it, I guess it's your problem, not mine. But nonetheless, you now know kind of how the Speedway motor wheel fit tool, you know how it goes on, you know how you should probably measure your axle from flange to flange to check it against, whether if you got the right one or not, etc. How to properly jack, for weight and all that kind of stuff, and you kind of know what's going on. But anyway, like, subscribe, rumble, ask questions. Not saying that I will answer every one of them, but I definitely try to answer simple ones, or ones that I can easily, answer. I may not even have the right answer, but nonetheless, I'll do my best to, talk with you guys. Be nice, by the way, because I just take losers who aren't and kick them to the side and block you and just shit like that, because I ain't got time for your shit. But anyway, yeah, I know I seem like an asshole, don't I? It's fun, actually, for me. Anyway, yeah. Like, subscribe, rumble. You'll find this stuff on Rumble and YouTube and wherever else I decide to put it. But for now, we're going to cut this short because it's getting long. And I'll do another video that basically I'll start, fitting those tires over on there and show you kind of how I'm measuring the back, etc. And then I'll set the front. And you know what? For the front, I'm thinking about getting my other jack out. Jack up this side, jack up that side. That way I have them both up off the ground, so I can also measure flange to flange on the front. Now, of course, that'll be a little harder to do because you've got the engine and all that shit in the way. But I think there's a way I can do it from underneath that'll at least give me a general idea. Obviously, alignment machine would be the best way to do that. But, I don't know. We'll just see how this goes. Okay? Later.